live. So yeah, so just chatting as people join in here. So we usually have a few people that like to get in early. But you mentioned, did you say you're in Detroit? That's right. Is that right, Tina?
I am actually, I don't know if you guys know this, but Michigan is the only state that you can show where you live on your hand. It's shaped like your, so I live here on my hand.
Yeah.
So where's Minnesota from here? Minnesota's over here.
To the Minnesota would be over here.
Oh, over here. Okay.
Hey, you know,
yeah,
This is
you're in Lake
Colorado.
Erie.
This is Colorado right here.
yeah, I know that a couple of weeks ago they were showing the waves in Lake Michigan. I mean, they were from the storms were just massive.
Yes. Yes.
It's incredible.
Lake Michigan can oftentimes not look that dissimilar to the ocean, depending on how much you actually have in westerly winds blowing in. So you definitely have, it's got some power. It's a pretty big wave.
Yeah. But it's so weird. I mean, just going into Lake Michigan because it's so big, it looks like an ocean, but it's all fresh water. And so it's completely different. You know, it's a kind of takes you back.
It does. When you get in the water, you're like, oh, it feels so much different. It definitely does. And there's a whole business line that is here that is freshwater shirts because everyone talks about the fresh water. So yes, definitely. Have you been to the lakes? Any of you been to the Great Lakes?
As a matter of fact, when I was 4 years old, my father's a biologist. So we lived off of Isle Royal for like 5 months.
Nice.
When we lived in a tent as he did his research on
Okay.
Isle Royal of Lake Superior.
Yes.
So when you describe that, I mean, I was like this little kid on one of those massive ships, which is the size that you have for the ocean. And yeah, I remember those oceans, but yeah, so that's my experience. I actually lived there with the mooses and everything.
I love it. I love it. And for those of you who don't know, Lake Superior is at the top and it is freezing cold water. It very, very rarely gets warm enough you can swim in.
Wow.
Exactly. It truly is like the ocean, the Arctic Ocean.
I've been on Lake Huron.
Love it. Love it.
Yeah. And I went to school near Cleveland, so Lake Erie, and I know about lake effect.
Yes. Lake effect, lake effect.
Does that mean like the torrential rains? Is that what is
Snow
lake
and
It's
cold.
Yes.
It
Oh,
dumps.
wow.
It causes major snowstorms.
So if you live, depending on which way the wind is blowing, if you live off the lake and the wind is blowing your direction, you can sometimes get 4, 6, 8, 10 feet of extra snow beyond the regular storm because it picks up all the moisture from the lake and it literally drops it right there. I think of all the places I know, there's a couple that popped to mind, like Erie, Pennsylvania is on the east side of Lake Erie and they get just pounded with snow. The whole western side of the state of Michigan does as well. So you get
And Buffalo.
and
That's
Buffalo.
like why Buffalo gets it, because they're on the east side of the lake.
Yes.
So crazy.
Wow.
Crazy.
Tina, how do you handle the snow there? I mean, do you have a snowmobile or what do you do to dig out of your driveway?
So most people here either have snow blowers, shovels, or someone plowing them out. That's just, it's what it is. You learn to live with it. Would I prefer not to be in snow? I would really prefer not to be in snow anymore. But I do still love having my 4 very, very clear different seasons. And we do have very different seasons here.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, just for our listeners out there, we're just having a chat for about 3 more minutes and we'll start at the top of the hour. So just learning a lot about Michigan. I was born in Birmingham, and I have family up in Michigan.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah, spent some time up in Honor, right near Traverse City.
Yes.
And so yeah, it's a beautiful area. So I love it.
I love Traverse City. And if you ever have an opportunity to come to the Cherry Festival in Traverse City, we have more wineries in Traverse City than you do in Napa Valley. It's amazing up there. And the views are just stunning and spectacular, especially in the fall. You get all the color change. It's just fantastic. So if you want to do a quick getaway with your family, head up to Traverse City.
Great
tip. We'll
advice.
be on it.
Might not make it back if there's so many wineries, but
Yeah, it's really fun. I mean, it's kind of a hidden secret for a lot of people, but it's so many wonderful places there. I'm a big fan of maple syrup and all that kind of stuff, the real stuff, so I love going up there. There's lots of reasons to go up to Michigan for sure. Hey, Howard.
Hi there.
Yeah.
Hi, Tina.
Hello, Howard. Nice to meet you.
Hey.
We have 2 more minutes and we're going to get things kicked off.
Howard, you're going to have to be the DD on the wine tour.
There you go.
Joking.
And
You're
just
making
to
our
be-
driver.
That would be torture.
I know it would. That's why I picked you.
If y'all just
Yeah, I
give me
like
1
that.
second, I'll be right back.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
Howard,
Tina, it's
where are
nice to
where
meet
are
you
at?
too. Sorry, I
Very
just
nice to meet you, Wendy.
We've been
able-
emailing, so
I was gonna say,
it's
we've
great to-
chatted in email, but not in person. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Good to meet you.
Great to meet you. Sorry, Char.
Oh, I was just saying, Wendy, you're in Durango, and Howard, you're in Newark. Are you in Newark or New Jersey?
Montclair. It's about a half hour from New York City.
So Tina, we're all over the place.
You are,
And
but
Ju-
I'm
Jules is
actually
in
headed.
California.
I'm actually headed to Colorado and not very long, so I could stop by and see Wendy and you, Char, depending on if you're there at the time. So I'm going to Denver, but I do like to go to Durango while I'm there. So
When are you going? When are you coming to Denver?
I know I'm coming in May, and I know I'm speaking in September there as well. So I've got 2 so far.
I'll be there during those times, I think.
Awesome.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And I was gonna say, yeah, come see us in Durango. Sam and I are both in Durango, so that would be
That's
great.
fantastic. Next time I'm in
Yeah.
town, I will definitely let you guys know the dates I'm there. That'll be great.
We always appreciate people coming, to our little 4 corners of nowhere. It's not easy to
Yeah,
get
and
here, so
And Wendy, I think you have the most beautiful section of Colorado, actually.
Yes.
yeah. It's
The most
hard to
colorful.
choose.
Mhm.
I did when we had our offsite in May, I did this like loop through Colorado where I like went up one side of the Rockies and came back the other. And it was just literally like my jaw was dropped the whole time. And I was just like, this is not even half the state. Like there's still like a whole nother half of the state that I didn't even drive in. And that was like 8 hours, like one way and 8 hours the other. And it's just like, it's so crazy beautiful. Our country is really amazing. So we're so grateful for it. Yeah.
So much to explore. I didn't realize till like I moved here and I'm like, wow, like there is you could spend your whole life just exploring the US. There's so much to see, so much to do, so many national parks. It's like plenty.
Yes, we're very fortunate for sure. All right. So Jules, we're at the top of the hour. You want to kick us off?
I see the screen, Sam. I'm ready. All right, everyone. Well, welcome to the People Strategy Forum. My name is Jules. I'm happy to welcome you here. We have a very exciting discussion today. The topic is going to be 3 keys to a better me in 23. What perfect timing. We're still in January. It's we still have plenty of time to make big changes. And our speaker is Tina Brandau. So I'll introduce her in a moment, but I will be here to help introduce everybody and give you a little bit of info about what the People Strategy Forum actually is. So our goal really is to engage, energize, and elevate your company and your employees. And we do that by bringing on a different guest speaker and also a panel of expert hosts who have talents and skills in so many things in the world of HR, compensation, people strategy, you name it. So it's a lot of great valuable information each and every week, completely for free. We do it live on Zoom, but also you can also listen to it in podcast form as well. So check out the podcast and, blast it in your car, all that. So let me introduce you to everybody else. We have Char, who is coming to us from Mexico, very jealous as always, but she is a small business owner. She has worked in the world of human resources for many, many years. She's been a career coach and consultant. We also have Wendy, who is part of the team at CompTeam. She's been helping us with the People Strategy Forum, actually, so bringing us all these wonderful speakers. She is also certified in TMA and has a lot of experience in talent management. We also have Howard, who is a compensation advisor and expert. He's worked with some huge companies over the years, and he uses his talents and technology to really boost the compensation departments of many organizations. And he's also part of the CompTeam as well. And Sam, we have Sam as well, who is the founder and CEO of CompTeam. He was also the person who created the People Strategy Forum, and he is an expert when it comes to talent initiatives and compensation as well. So that is our panel of hosts, and that brings me to Tina Brandau. I did say she is our wonderful guest speaker. We're really excited to have her because she is the founder of Success Coaching Solutions. She's a success coach and #1 best-selling author, and she was actually just telling us before we went live that her book, Standing Strong, just outranked Think and Grow Rich. So that's a really big deal. So we'll leave the link for her book a little bit later. That's really wonderful. Congratulations on that. And she's also a motivational speaker. She's spoken on over 500 different stages. So again, we are talking about 3 keys to a better me. So take notes, and welcome, Tina.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here. Just hearing you talk about them, like, who is that person? Who did all that? We all have those things that we do that shock us. And that's what we're going to talk a lot about today, is how to become your best me, because sometimes we don't really take stock of everything that we have the ability of doing. And that's what I love talking about most.
Yeah, it's such an honor to have you here, Tina. Before we get started, I'd just love to hear a little bit about your background, how you got into this business, and what drove you to write the book and so forth. So can you give us a little details?
Oh, I'd love to. So not unlike most of you that were just introduced, I spent, I'm not going to let you do the math, but a lot of years in human resources as an executive, an officer, C-suite, all of that fun stuff, helping organizations really, truly reach their goals, create the wealth, create the organization, create the effect that they're looking for. And I decided at some point in my career that I wanted to also help small businesses do the same thing. And so I decided to run multiple things, because why not do more than one thing? So I started a side business, or a side hustle, as it was called at the time, helping entrepreneurs do the same thing. Along this journey, I had a really unique, unimaginable accident happen to me. So while I'm helping corporations do all their things, I found myself being unable to help myself do anything. So I had to relearn. I had to retrain my brain. I had to relearn. I had to redo everything in life all over again following my accident. And I realized in that process that a lot of us do not live our potential. And that is what drove me to write the book. Now, the accident itself left me in a place where I was not functioning really well. I function a lot better now. I actually function really well now comparatively. But the book itself is all about those lessons so that you can apply them in your life. Did I return to becoming an executive coach? Yes. Did I return to becoming a C-suite? Yes. Did I do all those things? I did. And how I did it is what's inside that book. And that's why I wrote it, because I believe that we all have to face that challenge in life, which is to become all that's possible.
Yeah, it's sometimes it's unfortunate for a lot of us that it takes an event, a significant event, for us to really frame life like it should be framed, right? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, we go through our days, and sometimes we're a little bit misguided, and we're just making the steps and not thinking about how important family, our loved ones, putting work in the right framework is. So thank you so much for writing this book. And I unfortunately I have not had the chance to read it yet, but I do plan on getting this on my reading list here real soon.
The book itself is a mechanism to help you, right? It's to help us. But as leaders, we have so much more that we need to do every single day. We were talking about earlier, talking a lot about the stresses that people have been under in the last few years. We've talked a lot about that. And those stresses are, frankly, parallel to the stresses that I went through. And I'd love to dive deeper into how we can actually help people get through the stresses that we're facing today and become that best me in 23.
Yeah, right now
I love the branding, by the way. Best me in 23.
That came from me waking up one morning and going, you know what? I've got some adjusting to do and I need to become a better me. And then I was like, it's 23. It rhymes. It works.
Because I
Well,
think
right
a
now-
lot of us are going through that right now. I'm
Yeah,
sorry,
for
Sam,
sure.
go ahead.
Oh no, yeah, no, for sure, you're right on it, Char. I mean, but there's a lot of uncertainty in what's we're facing this year. I mean, you're hearing a lot of. I think what was it just today? Microsoft laid off another 10,000 people, and so the
Wow.
economy going forward is uncertain, and so and with bringing in uncertainty into this question, how do we really prepare for that, Tina, and for all this uncertainty and also making sure that we have a great year?
I think we need to take a little step back, Sam, and that is we've been living in uncertainty for quite a stretch here. Most of us deal with uncertainty in moments, but we now are in a marathon of uncertainty. We went from the pandemic into understanding how to get your business back online, get your business back functioning well, then into now an economy. And so we haven't really had a chance to take a breath. We haven't had a chance to recharge and refuel yet. So when we're talking about how do you do that for this year, we have to realize one simple truth, and that's you cannot control what is beyond your control. And we have to stop trying to. You can plan, you can make plans. And I do believe in having war rooms with massive plans. Most organizations do. But what's beyond our control, we cannot try to control. And I think we've been trying to do that for a very long time now. And people are tired. You're having a lot more people burned out. You're having a lot more people leaving the workforce. And yes, the impending layoffs and everything that we keep hearing about has got a lot of people on edge at this point.
Yeah, I can't recall where I heard this, but it was a day or so ago where they were talking about stress and health. And they find that the study was going down the path of that when we have control of our stress. I mean, we voluntarily are entering into that in work life and so forth, that it doesn't have such a detrimental impact on our health. But when stress is forced upon us on things that are not controllable, that is where the real damage happens. Do you find this true, Tina?
It absolutely is. When something is beyond your control, you have a physiological change and a neurological change and I know too much about the brain after my injury and accident and all of that I've learned, but you literally can see stress inside the brain on an fMRI light up your entire brain. It takes all of your energy. And we've lived, frankly, in a state of constant stress for the last several years. So that is why when you're sitting in the moment and you're wondering, what can I do to fix this? Sometimes the answer is you can't. And we have to be okay with you can't. But you have to have the second piece of that. I can't, but I can do X. So letting go of what you can't. And most of us have people that we're responsible for, people that we're accountable for, and we don't want to let go of the thought that we can't. But the truth is you really can't. We don't control a virus. We don't control the economy. What we can do is control our thoughts and actions that follow it.
So you're getting me thinking, because my colleagues here know that this has been my life. I was, a long-term corporate lady, same kind of positions that you did. And when I left corporate years ago, I had to, invent businesses and create and innovate businesses. And what's fascinating is psychologically, though, I would testify to the fact that with the stress and the anxiety, you tend to lose your mojo, right? Because you're so worried about the unknown and the ambiguous next outcomes, because who would ever imagine what we experienced over the last couple of years as a world, right? And it is kind of scary, even going into 2023, I would say, because right now I am inventing new businesses. I am a former corporate person. I don't really feel like doing a traditional corporate job, but at times I find myself stagnated in kind of that fight or flight kind of mentality. right? Where you get a little bit, you're stuck in the headlights, like, oh crap, we're going into 2023. Am I really that old right now? I mean, and am I going to do all of this and achieve all my goals in the next year? So Tina, what is your recommendation to kind of break this cycle of stagnation or fear of the unknown? And how do you break through that in the business setting? And also empower others to break through some of that stagnation. What are your thoughts on that?
I love that question. I love that question. Most leaders have a drive to them. That's how you got into the leadership role that you're in. And unfortunately, when you can't control something, what we often find is that we all end up doubling down, doing more, running faster, and putting more and more on our plate, trying to grasp anything we can control. And what that does is sends us into a spiral of burnout. So the first thing we have to do is stop doing what's our natural inclination of doing more. I actually say all the time to my clients, yes, we are human doers. We are doers. That's how we are wired, or we wouldn't be in the roles that we're in. But we have to also remember we're human beings, and it's okay to be and not just do. And that is shocking. And the biggest piece of pushback I get is, I can't stop. I can't stop. Yes, you can, but you're not stopping to stop. You're stopping to vision. You're stopping to plan. You're stopping to look at it differently, because when you're in a state of running, you can't plan effectively. We are in reactionary mode. You have to stop long enough to take a proactive step, and you may not get it right. You may guess at what's going to happen in XYZ area, and you may not get it right, but you still have to take the time to be proactive instead of just running all the time.
So important.
And you know what came up for me, Tina, when you were just saying that? I mean, two things. One, I love what you said is stopping doesn't mean you're not doing anything. That's huge. And the second thing that comes for me is how we really need that time to integrate. And that's where our awesome ideas come from, is in the shower, on our run, at our workout, on the walk, when we've stopped, put it aside, left it, gone somewhere else, then all of a sudden, that's when everything comes in. That's when the inspiration. So I love that you said stopping to vision, and so anyways, that really resonated. Thank you.
I think that most of us in the last couple of years have ran really, really hard, and we've worked in the moment, not on the moment. And that's working in your business versus on your business. And I really feel like we need to get back to a pattern of working on instead of just in. And it's not just batting down whatever's coming at us in the moment. So vision is huge. It is absolutely huge. But I want to throw another big chunk out to talk about, if you guys are willing, and that's work-life balance. I hate that term. I do not believe it exists. I do not like that. When I say that word, I personally feel tension over, I have to do something different. I have to do it right. I have to balance it. And I joke all the time that there are really 8 elements of life. So if I give each element equal credence, I only get to sleep for 3 or 4 hours a night. So that's not going to work for me. So balance in and of itself brings stress that I don't like. So I love referring to life as a harmony. It's like an orchestra. Sometimes the harp is playing and sometimes the drum takes the lead. Sometimes you have a pianist who's going to be the loudest in the orchestra, but it all plays together perfectly. So I want us to talk about work-life, some type of work-life harmony that we can create.
Yeah, and I often find that, some of the things that we need to find that harmony is to break the old mold, I think, because when we're thinking about how business used to be run 5 years ago, before we had the remote work phase. I mean, we were in the office the entire time. There was we are so programmed to that mindset. And then now, as people are working remote, a lot of people are feeling lonely, disconnected. And I think a lot of that is because they haven't adapted to their new environment. Instead of going out to colleagues for lunch, they should be going out with their friends to lunch, family members, and things like this, and to bring some of that balance into play. And like you said, Tina, I do believe a lot of that inspiration that happens in life, as you and Wendy were highlighting, happens when we're not in that mode of going through the production, and you're in the office and going through the motions. It's when we have that creative work. So I think that's a super powerful.
Another thing that actually happened during the last few years is, especially for your listenership or your audience is mostly leaders. And we had to make a lot of decisions. So you also have decision fatigue that has happened during this time. So if you take your work-life harmony and your decision fatigue and you look at those two things, sometimes it has to be to decide that you're done making decisions for the day because your tank is just empty. And it's okay to say that. I mean, some of the best executives that I know that I work with only make decisions during their time of genius during the day. They'll only do it from 8 till 11 in the morning if that's their zone. Some people say, don't ask me to make a decision till 3 o'clock because that's when I'm on fire. It's okay to do that, because what we have to learn to do, Sam, to your point, is to live more effectively, to live more efficiently. And that includes leading, that includes working on our projects. It includes everything that we're doing. We have to actually learn to do it all in balance with each other, all in harmony with each other.
I found that, Sam, as you were saying, in terms of taking time out, that it's actually been easier because of COVID, with more people working from home. People are around. So I've been using that time and opportunity to get together with friends or get together with people that in the past I would only speak to over the phone, and grab coffee, grab lunch, and just, exchange ideas. And it's been great, and actually easier to schedule than when I was in a working environment, going into an office, and they were going into offices.
Howard, that's amazing that you've made the opportunity or taken the opportunity to do that, made that effort. A lot of people haven't. That's the number one thing that I hear from my clients is how lonely they are. In fact, we got together for a large group meeting, and I cannot tell you how many people were like, oh my goodness, you have feet. I can see your feet, because they've been on Zoom for so long. They were just elated to actually be back in person with people again. So,
And you're not in yoga pants? You're not in your yoga pants? You're not in your yoga pants?
Not in your yoga pants or Bermuda shorts. We did have some of that, but you definitely, we have a world now of people who are stressed. We have a world of people who are living in uncertainty, and a world of people who are lonely, and leadership was lonely before. It's worse now. So I do think that is an adjustment that we all need to make at this point.
Okay, I have to just say this, because at our opening, we were talking about Michigan, the water, the beaches, and we were talking about the waves coming in, and sometimes they're massive. They're like massive waves that are just bombarding. And at times, what do you call it when the snow comes in and just dumps?
The lake effect snow?
The lake effect snow. So I have to say, I think this is a new analogy. I think I'm going to write an article on this and put it on LinkedIn or something, because I have a white German Shepherd and a red German Shepherd, Rojo and Blanco German Shepherds, and they'd go out in the waves, and they have to time those waves, right? So the big waves start to come in with the tide, and my dogs like time the wave before they jump in and grab the ball before it hits. So I think in business and as leaders, I think when you say stop and take a moment to breathe, oftentimes you're having to brace yourself for those large bombarding waves that is going to crash you into the turf. And if you don't stop and take a breather and wait for the big wave to come and crash through the shore, you're going to get smashed. So that's my new analogy. I think I just made that up. What do you think?
I think it fits perfectly. I think it fits perfectly. And it doesn't have to be big pauses that you do either. Little pauses make big impact. Little things. I'm going to give you one right now that I ask every single person that I work with to do. And I will tell you, it is one that they panic when I ask them to do it. I ask them to set their organization's email to not deliver any email after 5 p.m. None at all. If there's an emergency or an urgent situation, and we do have to educate people on what an emergency really is. If there's an emergency, they can call you. Even as the CEO, they call you. They don't send the email. All emails go. We know from studies that if somebody is distracted, it takes you 20 minutes to go back to the task at hand. 20 minutes. And how many times are you pinged, dinged, contacted in some way, shape, or form, or asked just a brief question? All day long, it happens. So if we want to store our energy, save our energy, shut your email off at 5 o'clock. What that does for you is nothing. You can keep working if that's what you want to do for you. What that does for your entire team and entire company is lets them shut down. They're not worried about, am I going to miss a message from my boss today? Am I going to miss something and let's face it, most people are wired where we want affirmation. We want acceptance. We want acknowledgement. Our brains are still wired where we do not. Lone wolves don't survive. We are tribal by nature. We want to be acknowledged. We want to win. We want to be seen in good light. So what do? We answer those emails at 9 o'clock at night.
Also, Tina, wouldn't you also say the social media? I mean, some of us have 6, 7 different social media accounts.
Mm-hmm.
And then plus you got your boss, your colleagues, your assistant, your employees, the dopamine rush. I mean,
Yes.
a zillion. I mean, back when I was doing corporate, I'd get 200 emails a day. And you're right. I get them all night, all weekend, Sunday morning on an Easter Sunday when I was supposed to be enjoying making breakfast with my kids. And I was getting bombarded with emails and calls. And I mean, and, talk about unhealthy. I actually can't imagine right now with Twitter and Instagram and LinkedIn and Facebook and every other thing, we're getting constantly hit with all of those bing, 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 plus having our work. So, I think often we don't know how to shut down. We don't know how to push it away or put the phone in the kitchen away from the bedside.
Yeah.
And so what you're saying is that be a model for that as a leader, like be an executive and a model to show your employees and your leaders, this is what you should do as an executive?
Not only be a model, but so you need to execute the strategy. So it's model the behavior, but make sure it gets escalated gets executed throughout your entire organization so that it's unavoidable boundaries. Those boundaries are put in place. There's safeguards for people to take care of themselves. I'm going to give you all another tip. And this is something that I am a huge fan of. Social media, shut off your notifications. Number one, shut off your notifications. And number two, some of us live in the world. So I run some Facebook groups. I cannot shut off my Facebook because I have groups that I do. However, you can put on an app that is a Facebook feed eradicator. So you only see your groups and you don't have to spend 4 hours watching dog videos because we know we do that. We know that when we go in that rabbit hole, we go way down it. So you can do things that actually buy you back additional time. It's most important though, is setting boundaries and helping other people do it. And as leaders, we have to give them permission to do so. And when you do, you change your workforce, you change their lives, you change their families, and you change yours as well.
That brings us to an important point of just how leaders should really embrace all of this. And so right now we're in a period of time where, like we started out, there's a economic downturn, there's layoffs going on, there's uncertainty, a lot of stress that our employees are dealing with. And at the same time, a lot of larger companies are making the choice right now to force people to come back into the office. And it just seems like it's a very dangerous time to be forcing that inflexibility on your people when they're already dealing with a lot of stress. What are your thoughts there, Tina?
I think that you have to know your organization and know your team. I mean, if you're a healthcare entity, it makes sense that you have to have more people back. They have to be on site to provide services. If you have the flexibility, make the flexibility. I will also tell you that the natural reaction for people when they start seeing layoffs happen around them is to do more to prove their worth to stay where they are. The reality is, if your organization is cutting a percentage of their people, you could work 24 hours a day and it may not have a different impact. What you need to do is work smarter, not harder. And what to do that, super simple. I'm going to ask you to simply think about what are the most important things that you need to get done and focus on them. Don't focus on anything else. Focus on those few things. Focus is what drives momentum and helps you to be more efficient. And we have gotten to a point where we're not focused at all, or at least I know I have, and most of my clients have, and they're running major organizations. Focus is a huge problem when you're putting out fires constantly. So when you say bring them back in the office, if they can effectively and efficiently do their work at home, let them have that flexibility.
I agree. The other thing is also, as professionals out there, and we might, even some of the C-suite might be feeling a little insecure about their future at a company. There's with a lot of layoffs, and I think it's pretty important for leadership to or just not just leaders, for everyone, all professionals out there, to be thinking about diversification, right? Making sure that they're continuing with their own personal brand marketing, and even if they think that they have a secure job, I don't think we should ever stop on participating in those online forums, like you mentioned, showing our professionalism, doing our networking, and so forth. Even to the extent of being open to freelance or gig work and so forth. But what are your thoughts about having personal or professional resilience in times of uncertainty here, Tina?
I think proactiveness is always your friend. I really do. You have to, in this time. Did any of the people from Microsoft think they were losing their job before the layoff notice came out? Organizations don't go around and say, hey, guess what? We might be thinking about something 3 months from now that we're going to lay you off. It's not something that's known until it's announced typically. And so planning and being prepared is always a great thing to do. And you prepare not today, you prepare months in advance, years in advance, and frankly, you prepare throughout your entire career, forming relationships, building relationships and networking, and really doing that is something we all should be doing every single day of life.
The other thing I'd like to mention is just the power of understanding our people, having conversations and so forth. I mean, often here at the People Strategy Forum, we talk about the TMA method, which is an assessment to make you more aware of your people and their desires and so forth. And so how important is it for leadership to, in your perspective, Tina, to understand their workforce, and then how deep should they go into that work-life balance, or that harmonization you were talking about, of understanding our people and where they're at on a regular basis?
So I don't believe it's feasible for a CEO to know, in a larger organization, to know every employee and everything that they want, wish, and desire in life. But it is possible for every manager to know their team. And it's not only possible, but it's an absolute must in this world. People will not follow a leader unless they know how much that leader cares, and a leader can't care if they don't know their people. So I'm going to say that when you are a C-suite executive, you definitely need to know 2 layers beneath you that intimately well. Beyond that, it's not, again, may not be feasible, depending on how large your team is, that you can know everybody. When you say that harmonization and understanding it, it really comes down to a couple of things. If you are truly a servant leader, you want to know your people. If you want to build your people, you have to know how to help them. And if you're not in a leadership capacity, and this is where I get myself in a little bit of trouble with a whole lot of people when I say this, but it's true. If you are not in leadership to build up other leaders, you're in the wrong field. So if you are a leader who doesn't have any interest in developing their team, you don't belong in leadership. So, and if you do have that desire, you're going to know your people. It's so important that you know what motivates each person. It's so important that you feed into that And that, frankly, we know from the studies that the number one reason people leave a job is their immediate supervisor. So know your people, and then talk to your manager about your people, and keep that escalating up the organization. And that way everybody knows everybody and knows how to best make decisions, because I can't decide what needs to happen. If I'm sitting in a C-suite, I'm not in touch with Bob in another department. I may not have any idea what his goals and dreams are, but I can't make decisions knowing that if I don't have that information. So it's super important that that information gets cascaded up and cascaded down.
It's also important to bring in people with different skill sets and even stronger skill sets than yourself, because the collective strength of that, body is amazing. You can move mountains when it works together.
I like to say that my goal and objective in my career was always to be the dumbest person in the room, because if I was, that meant I was always learning something.
Right.
If any of your listeners are readers, which I believe all leaders should be readers, I'm just putting that out there. But if they're readers, Team of Rivals is an amazing book of how Lincoln surrounded himself with all people who had very vastly different ideas and very, very much had strengths that he did not have. And how you build a great team is surrounding yourself by people who are better than you are at things that you're not good at.
Oh, I love that. We're going to definitely probably find that and put in the link. Well, I think you mentioned earlier that you went from coaching from more of a larger, I believe what I understood is larger corporate setting, chief HR officer, more of an HR executive. I have similar background. And then also then you transitioned into supporting smaller businesses and becoming that. And I'm kind of a microcosm. I had near 30 employees in my new company. And I applied some of the principles that Sam mentioned with the TMA method with my company. So I was able, as kind of my talent management strategist, to redesign a completely different way to getting to know my employees, my leaders particularly, and understanding talents, drives, competencies, ambitions, having different types of conversations. I would say as a former HR practitioner and former SHRM trained, kind of, no offense, SHRM, but more of a formal way of thinking about HR, performance management, learning and development, as Wendy understands all of those formal ways, and then transitioning into kind of more of a new and progressive way, moving into 2023 as far as how do you really understand your employees on a deeper, more cognitive level, a better understanding of how their leadership, what drives them, what motivates, what how to really motivate your employees. It wasn't until I truly became a business owner and had the full accountability of my people's strategy to really embrace what that means. Because in my former life as an HR person, I didn't really understand that until I truly became a true business owner, right? And I wore the hat of the CFO, I wore the hat of the COO, and I gave myself many titles. That was the fun part of owning my own business. But what is your thought about true experience and really running your own business as your own entrepreneur? And what do you think the difference is, more of a corporate setting where you're just a department that's accountable for that function? Do you think there's a very different perspective or mindset in those differences, Tina?
I do. So I'm a serial entrepreneur. I actually just 2 weeks ago sold off one of my companies. So I'm a serial entrepreneur, and I 100% know exactly what you're talking about. It is different when it's you. It's also different if you are a chief executive officer, because you are also accountable to them for all the departments. But being in a silo, I think the best analogy I have for you is something that happened to me early on in my career. It was my first C-suite position that I held, and it was 20 years ago or so. And I was walking into my chief executive's office, and I wanted something. I needed something. I knew I needed it. I wanted it. And I made the pitch. I made the business plan. I made the business case. I presented all the information. I gave him the whole document and everything, knowing full well that this was the right thing to do. And he got up from his desk And he said to me, come sit in my chair. And I was like, okay, I'll come sit in your chair, not having any idea what he was actually going to do for me. And he did something massively for me at that moment. He had me read through the different 5 files. There were 5 files on his desk, the different 5 proposals that he had gotten that day from the 5 different divisions that reported to him that all needed something that was equally as expensive, equally as impactful, and that he needed to make a decision on. And he asked me to make the decision.
Wow.
It changed my life because I was like, you know what? I'm looking at this through a very narrow lens. From that point forward, I looked at it as an overarching view, but it is so important that we don't look in our silos. And it is very different when it's your own. And if you are an entrepreneur, and I will be honest with you, the entrepreneurial space has blown up.
Mm-hmm.
But most entrepreneurs that I'm meeting are not business experienced. A lot of them have not led big teams. A lot of them have not led a team at all. A lot of them have never ran a business of any kind, or even know the financial background or any of the other pieces that you need, and certainly not the people management side of it. It is radically different to get to know your team when you are confident in who you are as a leader than it is to get to know your team when you have no idea what you're doing when it comes to people management. So there is a very different view as a business owner than there is even as an executive. So I do believe that those are 2 totally different worlds. If you are an entrepreneur listening to this right now, first and foremost, it takes a lot to be an entrepreneur or solopreneur. So huge kudos to you for taking a step into that arena. And secondly, the best way to get to know your people is by working beside them. And as entrepreneurs, most of us do that. You're working alongside that person, have conversation and get to know them. There is no taboo. You're not going to be in trouble. There's no laws that you're breaking by talking to your people. Just know your team. And frankly, especially if you're a growing small organization, knowing your team, you're building what will end up becoming your next level leadership as you grow your business. So don't be afraid of it, lean into it, and just be you, and you will do great at it.
So powerful, Tina. So the next thing we were talking about, development. We were talking about leaders upping their skills, and even that aha moment that you had years ago. So as leaders are framing 2023 and they're looking at their own personal development, how should they go about this?
The first thing I would ask you to do is really vision out what you really are trying to accomplish, because we tend to go off and say, I'm going to lose weight. I'm going to do this. I'm going to read this. I'm going to get this certification. I'm going to do all these things, but there's no real strategy to it. There's no real vision to it. What is it you're trying to accomplish? Are you trying to become a C-suite executive? Are you trying to start your own business? Are you trying to, jump to $1 billion organization from a $500,000 a year organization? What are you trying to do? Know that vision and know it very clearly, because if you don't know where you're going, you're never, ever going to get there. So start with your vision. And that takes some time and reflection. It's not doing a vision, it's creating a vision. So you have to actually reflect on that. And then I think the next thing that you have to do, Sam, is to take a moment and really assess your values. And values are key. If you don't know what you value, you can't make decisions. And most of us don't spend a lot of time on our values. Do we know what our organizational values are? Sure we do, because they're on a wall, because we tell them to our new hires, because we talk about them in presentations. We know all of that. But what are your own personal values and what's important to you? Because that will help you make decisions on how to develop yourself in this coming year. And then I think the third piece is really making sure that you have real solid goals. And I know most of us know how to do SMART goals, but I think we miss the mark with SMART goals. I think we're missing a couple of things. If you do not have the energy and enthusiasm behind that goal, if you don't have a really big why behind that goal, you're not going to do it. And in organizations, they tend to have whys tied to them, but in our personal goals, we really don't do that very often. So making sure that you do that. So have your vision, know your values, have your goals. Once you have them, make sure you have a plan to execute it, because having them on a piece of, first of all, I am stunned how many people do not write their goals down. And then how many people fail to meet accountability with them or having somebody to help them with it. And please, for the love of all things, do not ask your spouse or your family member to be your accountability partner. That never ends well. Don't do that. Find somebody else to be your accountability partner, but making sure you have your vision, your values, and your goals, and then a plan to actually reach them.
So
I 100% agree, but I also know that as executives, we oftentimes have a challenge aligning all of our goals and becoming an agreement with them. So it can be a challenge because each of us have different priorities.
that's a good point, Char. And then the other thing is when we think about our goals, I mean, they actually fall in several different categories, right? We have family goals. I mean, we have work goals, even in diving in more marketing and so forth, so what are the common categories that people should be thinking about to really have a good harmonized work life?
I think that comes down to your visioning, right? So if you're really going for a massive promotion this year, or you're going to start a brand new organization this year, you're going to spend more time on your business component than if you are looking to level up to a new position only. So there's very different levels of things that we have to look at. So looking at what time commitment and type of commitment that you're making to reach that goal or reach that vision is important. But I would say that you need to look at your family. You need to look at your finances. You need to look at your career in terms of either starting a new company or growing it. And then your health, because I'm just going to put this out there. Without health, nothing else matters. I lost my health completely. A little spoiler alert for those of you who haven't read my book. I couldn't walk or talk or feed myself. When you lose your health, I could not think through words to put together in a sentence. When you lose your health, you lose everything else. So please don't put that on the back burner for another big audacious thing you want to do. So those are the elements, Sam, I would say to focus on. The other thing is, pick your top 5 goals for the year. Don't pick 50. Pick your top 5 and then break them down into quarterly. And then I tell people to break it down into the next tiniest step you can take. I think I shared this with you already, Sam. I wasn't at a place where I could do the great big visioning. I had to do really little teeny tiny steps, but those teeny tiny steps are what got me back to where I am today. As long as you're making progress, you are moving towards that goal. And, we've heard this adage and saying, and I've said it for decades myself, progress, not perfection. Keep it moving forward. So break those quarterly goals down into things that you can consume very easily and do day in and day out. And it doesn't have to take you 10 hours. 5 minutes a day will move you forward.
Like what you said there about health. I have my personal coach that helps me with my career and my business always tells me that health is wealth. That's his main value. And it is truly important because one thing that sometimes I get myself so leveraged in doing a lot of work and helping a lot of clients that I'm afraid to get sick. It's like, I don't, if I get sick, it's going to put me behind. I'm not going to meet my deadlines. And so, if you think about that, I mean, it's first of all, you don't want to put yourself in that corner, of course, but it does make an awareness of how important health is. So, but I know that as we have gone through this conversation and how leaders should prepare best for this new year, what are some of the learnings that you have and lessons that you have in your book that will really highlight this topic?
So inside my book, I walk through the different steps that I took to get back to where I was. Now, reminding you, some of your leaders or some of your listeners won't actually know this, but I was functioning like a young child and had to figure out how to get back to me. That's what I was really trying to do. So I had to vision where I was going. And I talk a lot about the different types of visions and how you can create them and what was too big for me. And I had to change. It was contrary to what I had been teaching in corporate America for years because it didn't fit. I had to adapt it. So I talk about visioning. I talk about values. I talk about goals. I talk about accountability. I talk about how our thoughts create our results and how to modify those thoughts to get different results. And then I talk about the most important piece of all inside of there, and I call it your aim. If you don't have the right aim, you're never going to hit your target. And your aim is your attitude, your inspiration, and your motivation. And I actually got to do some of the most miraculous social studies ever, because I was a 40-year-old, don't do the math. I was the 40-year-old when I was injured, but I was functioning like a young child. When you're in an adult body functioning like a child, you're not treated like a child. People assume you to be an adult. So I got to experience adult behavior while processing like a young child, which really created this most amazing experience and experiment that I could have ever gone through. Would I wish the accident on anyone? Absolutely not. Do I wish everyone to experience that because it really helps you reframe and reset your life? Absolutely, I do. So getting to do that and getting to see how adults are really, really complex, you don't have to be, was the biggest gift of all. And I talk a lot about it in there, sharing a lot of very specific examples, talking about the imposter syndrome that comes up, talking about the ways in which our perceptions impact us. I talk a lot about that inside of our book, inside of the book. So if you really want to move forward with any change in your life and you're feeling a little bit stuck, this book will help you move through it. If you're looking to develop yourself and you're really not sure how you can do that, the book will help you do that too.
Well, I know that you have a free gift for our listeners today. And if you happen to be listening to this on a podcast, you can find this QR code on our website. But can you tell us a little bit about your free gift and what lesson 1 is in your book?
Absolutely. So first of all, I believe that when you show up somewhere and you're invited, you should always bring a gift. I couldn't bring dinner or a dessert or an appetizer, so I'm bringing a gift. So it's a free gift for me, and it's lesson 1 from my book. And lesson 1 is all about visioning. And I talk about how to create your vision. I talk about why it's important. I also talk about what stops you from creating your vision. And so I'm giving that to you as my free gift so that you can get started on your own development journey for 2023, because I do believe it's time for us to become our best me in 23.
Agreed. So I know I'm sure your book is available on Amazon, and you're mentioning about an audio version. Is that coming out soon?
It is actually. It will be out on Audible on February 3rd, 2/3 of 2/3. It will be out on Audible as well, but you can get the Kindle version. If you have Kindle Unlimited, it's actually free. If you have Kindle Unlimited, you can get the Kindle version, or you can get the paperback version from Amazon.
I'm looking forward to the audio version. I like listening as I'm working out and things, and so it's or walking outside is a lot of fun. So I'm looking forward to that version for sure.
I love reading because I know what it does to your brain. I've seen the fMRIs while I've been reading and saw what all it did. I love reading, but let's face it, sometimes the next best thing is listening to it on audio.
Tell me a little bit about that. So you said I know you're you have a special perspective about you're talking about the MRIs. What happens when you're reading? Is it more beneficial than listening?
It is your brain. So an fMRI actually lights up different parts of your brain that you're currently using. So it's a functional MRI instead of just a regular MRI that you would get for like your muscles and your ligaments, et cetera. So, and I'll tell you another really great thing that happens. First of all, the best thing about the fMRI is I can actually tell you all I have a brain because I got to see my brain. Most of us don't really know what our brain looks like. I got to see I have a brain in there. It was amazing. But the fMRI highlights and lights up different areas of your brain based on what you're doing. And reading actually lights up the majority of your brain. It's amazing. It is one of the best things you can do for brain health. Now, another thing, I'm going to give you one more little piece on the fMRI because I found this to be fascinating. When you are afraid, an area of your brain lights up. When you are excited, the exact same area lights up in your brain. Your brain does not know the difference between excitement and fear. It is identical. I saw it myself. It is identical. So what I choose to do is anytime that I'm feeling fear, and this helps in this world of uncertainty that we're in as well. So anytime I'm feeling fear, I just flip the word. I'm really excited right now. My brain doesn't know any different. My physiological response isn't any different. I just changed the word. I own it as excitement. I'm really excited right now. And your brain will calm right down and you'll move right through whatever you're working on.
That's an excellent perspective. I mean, just framing things in that mindset. So tell me, Tina, as our listeners are thinking about questions and so forth, and they want to get a hold of you to learn more about your programs and so forth, how can they do that?
This Linktree link that you have right here gets you right into my world, and you'll be able to access me through multiple ways with that Linktree link.
Great.
That QR code.
Perfect. And so what do you have planned for 2023?
So 2023, in 2022, I became a best-selling author. So 2023, I'm doing a lot of speaking. I'm doing a lot of onstage motivation, helping people beat the biggest challenge that I believe exists, which is becoming unstoppable at becoming what's possible in your life. So I will be speaking to a lot of organizations and associations this coming year. But I have the best part of 2023 that I'm super excited about is that I get to become a grandma this year for the very first time. So I'm going to be grandma this year for a minute too. So I took the month of February off because you never know when they're going to come. So we're going to, I'm going to do that as well. But my health is my number one. And getting back into full and complete health is something that I work on every single year. That is one of my focuses. And my other is to actually start another group program. I have 2 group programs right now. I'm going to start another group program as well in 23. So I have quite a full year coming up and, changing the world. I'm on a mission by December 15th of this year to have inspired 1 million people to become unstoppable at becoming what's possible. And that's an easy thing to do because I'm going to make it happen.
That sounds great. When you just sing, I just think of that $1 million, that we get out of this. What is that from Despicable Me or something
Despicable
like
Me.
that? Yeah. We're going to impact 1 million people. That sounds like a much more healthier way of thinking about the world. So thank you so much, Tina. You're such an inspiration, and we're so fortunate to have you here today. Thank you for joining us.
I am honored to be here. And if I can ever help any of your listenership out, please feel free to reach out to me. I'd be more than happy to have a chat or conversation.
Yes. Great. Thank you, everyone. And see you next week on the People Strategy Forum.
Take care. Bye.